Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us for this edition of Peace Talks, the series where we catch up with the bands that are coming to play for us at the Mars Bar in Worcester. And for this edition, we're joined by Paul Booth, who will be bringing up his Hoop project on Thursday, the 30th of November. So welcome, Paul, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I want to kick off because I saw you down at the Forge with Snowboy earlier in the year.
Yeah,
and Snowboy quite rightly, I think, introduced you as the busiest man at the moment, the sax player at the moment. You're certainly all over the place. You've just been touring with Incognito earlier this month, I
that's
believe.
right. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
been a crazy year. It's actually been one of the busiest years I've had for a long time, I have to say.
that's great news.
But it's
So
great.
you
It's
also,
really great. Certainly nothing to complain about. It's all good. And you definitely sometimes need a little bit of time at home, which
yeah.
has a massive amount of that of late. But it's great to be traveling and great to be touring with all these amazing bands.
Yeah, cool. Because you played with Lewis Cole as well, didn't you? His band. I saw you on the telly at Glastonbury. I haven't been to Glastonbury, but I watched that bit.
Yeah,
Touring
that
with
was
him a bit.
fun. That was amazing fun. I mean, and we did another one about 2 months before that, I think. There was a gig that he did in London, and
Yes.
we played once before with him a couple of years before that as well. So it's kind of like he has pickup musicians that he uses all the way around the world. It's the same, and he had like a different set of musicians for stuff on the continent, and then
Yeah.
same in Japan and wherever he goes. So yeah, it makes sense, yeah, and it's great for us getting to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
So you're the go-to sax player for all the visiting artists that come
Well,
through.
there's others as well, but I mean, I'm very very pleased to be on the list. Of people that get called for these great gigs. Yeah,
Yeah,
lucky.
and you get to dress up in skeleton suits as well. I
Well,
mean.
hey, that's the most fun part. That and dancing around and basically, I sort of people ask me why he does it, and I don't actually know, but I have a feeling that it's all to do with the fact that it's like fancy dress. It's when Halloween comes around, the minute that you get dressed up and you become like another character,
Right.
you
Okay. Yeah.
you loosen up and you have a bit more fun.
Yeah.
And I think it might be something to do with that, but I might be totally wrong. It might
Oh well,
you might just really like skeletons.
you certainly seem to be all enjoying it. It
Yeah,
does give a great stage presence to it.
yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about sort of how you got into your sort of musical journey, and how you got into music, into sax, into the sort of styles that you play.
Yeah. I mean, I started. I was very young when I started, and I started on piano actually. For a couple of years, I played, but until about 6 years, 4 till 6 or something like that, and then stopped music for a while, and then started expressing interest in the saxophone, and so my parents were like, right, okay, well, we'll get you one for your 10th birthday, but you're gonna have to promise to practice 15 minutes a day. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And of course I got it, and I was always on for way more than 15
Right.
minutes. And it sort of started there. And my dad was into music, and he played accordion and stuff when I was a kid, and in fact I did my very first gig with him. And then I grew up kind of between Spain and the northeast of England. This is where I'm from originally, but we lived out in Spain for quite a bit as well.
Mhm.
And then yeah, as I progressed, got to start playing around the jazz clubs in the northeast, and that's kind of where I really got into the music. And then I just knew that's all I wanted to do. And then I had a bit of an unusual upbringing. I was kind of homeschooled, and that meant at that time, which was in the 80s, that the only courses that were available were correspondence courses, and they were all kind of GCSE courses. So
Right.
I ended up sitting everything 2 years early, and it's not because I was super bright. I mean, I was good at music, and that's the only thing that sort of pushed me forward. But I ended up doing my GCSEs at 14, or some GCSEs at
Hmm.
14, and A levels at 16.
Wow.
And I did well in music, not so great in the other stuff, but that didn't really matter because I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
And when I was 15, I went to audition for the at the Royal Academy of Music and
Okay.
jazz course there, and they accepted me as a 16-year-old. I was 16 by the time I started. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning of it all. It got me into London, got me to meet all these amazing musicians, and I graduated in when I was 20 in 1997.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. So I've been a professional musician for quite a long time now.
Yeah, yeah, that's very good. Hence all the contacts and the work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
It's
saw
a
you on your credits there. You got Steely Dan in there. I was interested because I popped up to another Steely Dan tribute band over the
mm,
weekend.
oh yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah,
So were you playing? Because they played. I know because I moved up this way to the West Midlands in 2018. I think they were
yeah.
playing a gig in Birmingham around that time. Would that?
2018. Yeah. Well, so what it was is I was with Steve Winwood,
Right.
and it's been a long. I mean, it's been 17 years, kind of that I go back with him, and we went off on tour with a lot of bands, and it would usually because we were a small like 5-piece group. It was usually us opening for other bands, but it was a dual headliner gig, you know.
Mhm.
And so we've been out with Steely Dan 3 times, and in in that course we got to know everyone, and then Donald Fagen asked us to. Well, he got Steve up on several occasions, and then on the back of that, he got some of us up as well, some of Steve's band to go and play with Steely Dan, and that happened a few times. So that's why have played with Steely
Ah,
Dan. I
cool.
wasn't in the band, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have played. Walt Weiskopf is the guy that's been in that band for a long time. So yeah.
yeah. And of course, the other Steve Winwood alumni, Tristan Banks. So you've been. I think I just saw his play. You're playing their last gig of the year next
Yes.
this Thursday, aren't you? Tomorrow?
That's
No,
right.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah. It is tomorrow.
Day
That's
after
right.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's been an interesting one for him because Steve changed the band. He's changed a few members of the band after a long time. I think he was just looking for a different direction. That's fine. That's not a problem. But and that happened in 2019. Um, and so he brought in 2 new guys, and one of them being Tristan. And then, of course, the pandemic happened, and a lot of other stuff happened, and the poor guy's never done a gig with him yet. So he's officially in the band, and there have been recordings, and they've met and have jammed and all that, but there hasn't been a gig. So, yeah, that's been a little unfortunate. But yeah, that there might be something coming up next year, but I can't talk about that.
Ah, okay. But I guess you can because obviously we had Tristan come up in May, I think it was April, and then Hoop were scheduled to come up in May, but we had to reschedule, didn't we? Because
It, I know. I'm sorry. My fault.
no, it's all good. It's all part of the
Because of Strictly.
Strictly Come Dancing. You weren't dancing.
I was definitely not dancing. No, but yeah, those things come up, and from time to time, and it's like it's 6 weeks of work back to back. It's a tour, so it's kind of when those things come along. Unfortunately, you have to make some changes in your schedule
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
to
Well,
open up for it. Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's just a gig, isn't it? It's fun, but it's not necessarily where I want to be musically.
it pays the bills and it
It
allows you
pays
to
the
do
bills, exactly.
all the other interesting projects. I know Leanne Carroll sort of follows the series quite a bit and is always posted about the amazing musicians and singers and yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You had quite a stand on there as well, didn't you? You had about 10
Oh, did you
instruments.
see
I
that?
remember on
Yeah.
one of
Oh
your
God,
pictures.
yeah. The count was 9 instruments.
Oh, right.
Now, I'm not going to say it's 9 instruments I play particularly well, but it was like 3 saxophones, so tenor, alto, soprano, flute, piccolo, clarinet, and then harmonica, which I learnt for the tune,
Wow.
and then 2 whistles. think 2 different whistles. Yeah, I had to learn harmonica for like a chromatic harmonica for this one piece. I didn't have to, but I was like, oh, I'll take on the challenge. Why not? So that was interesting.
You
Now I
didn't
can
you
play
didn't
a little bit.
you didn't try any sort of Roland Russian Clerk playing two or three at the same time.
No, no. Although there might be some photos of me floating around where I'm doing a little bit of that.
Just for the photo, not for the video.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, tell us about the secret sessions, because I know and I sort of came across it from the posts that you put out on Instagram or Facebook back
Mm.
earlier in the year. Saying we've got this band, let's get some gigs. Yeah, so
Yeah,
tell us about that project, kind of how that came about and
thanks
what's
for taking the bait.
ah.
It worked. It actually worked.
Good.
Um, well, yeah, I mean, it's so Secret Session started at the beginning of 2019, and it was an idea that I had of just really it was about musicians who do a lot of this kind of stuff like I do, like, where you're playing more commercial music and not necessarily always playing, but you're jazz musicians, but not always getting to play the music that you set out to play.
Mm.
Because, you know, everyone needs to live, etc.
We're doing
Um,
Strictly Talks.
and then, yeah, exactly. So, so the idea was like, oh, well, why don't we, do something creative? Let's get a bunch of musicians together. And I think I ended up accumulating a list of 50 or 60 musicians that were potentially into this idea. And so, anyhow, sent this email out, said, look, I'm happy to pay for a recording session, a day in the studio, if you're up for just coming along and bringing your musicianship and maybe bringing some tunes along.
Mhm.
And I'll do the same, of course, and just a collective. So that's kind of how it started, and people were up for it. So I booked a day in the studio, and then of course loads of musicians say, "Oh, I'm free." Loads say no, but then I have to pick a band because it was too many,
Yeah.
too many musicians. So as I'm doing this, I thought to myself, actually, this would be way cooler if the musicians didn't know who they were going to be recording with on the day that they turn up to the studio, but they just know what the lineup is. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where the secret sessions came into it. That's
Right.
where that was born, I guess. So yeah, we started with one project and it ended up becoming an album called Fragile Eagle, or a band called Fragile Eagle. Basically, that's how it works. Is Secret Sessions is the umbrella,
Mhm.
and then for each time I book a day in the studio, that becomes a new band. So
Right.
that's the first one was like Fragile Eagle, which is just a digital release. But this all came out on Ubuntu Music. So it was in collaboration with Martin Hummel from Ubuntu, and also Paul Pace at The Spice of
Okay.
Life,
Yeah, yeah.
because he said he came on board saying that he would put the first gig on of every new project that we make. So
Excellent.
there's only been 2 so far, but Fragile Eagle was one, and we did a live gig there at the Spice, and then the next one was Hoop, which is where we are now. And I mean, the timing was terrible because of the pandemic and everything. So quite a few of the gigs that we had for both projects got pulled and then never got put back on again. So the Fragile Eagle project has been sort of pushed into the background somewhere, but it's still there. The music's still available. Some great stuff on there. That's with Tom Corley, Trevor Myers, Steve Fishwick, Ollie Hayhurst, and Dave Ingermels. There we go. That's that
Mhm.
band. And then yeah, Hoop was. I ended up getting Lawrence Cottle and Ian Thomas on board. So I was like, well, let's make this maybe slightly more, even though they play everything, maybe a slightly more fusion-based
Mhm.
project, and just go for it, because the first album was quite straight ahead.
Right.
So we thought we'd make this, a bit more contemporary, and with use of synths and all that kind of stuff. So that project ended up being Tom Walsh on trumpet, Nickel Thompson on trombone, Chris Allard, and the 4 of us were the ones that wrote the music for it.
Right. Okay.
Ian Thomas and Lawrence Cottle played, and we actually did it in we recorded the album in Ian Thomas's studio, which was great. And then we did a little bit of some overdubs as well. So there's some keyboard overdubs from Ross Stanley and Steve Hamilton, some percussion as well. So it ended up working out great. I mean, it's a big sounding album, and we did a couple of gigs, and then that's right at the beginning of this year I was like, right, I've got all these vinyl, I'm really going to sell this vinyl because it cost me a lot of money. So I was like, right, in order to do that we need gigs. So I was like, let's just try this out and see what happens, and got on Facebook and I was like, right, here's some links to the killing band, we're really good, give us a gig.
Give us a gig.
And then guess what, it happened.
Fantastic. It does work. Just get out there, be bold.
Exactly, yeah. So thank you.
So have you managed to shift much vinyl? Well,
a little bit, yeah. I need to shift more. It's very hard unless you're actually doing a gig, because if you don't have an awful if you don't have a big online presence, which Secret Sessions and who doesn't really, but then you need to go and perform live, and when you perform live you sell it. So that's so.
Make sure you bring him along. We had Corey Dick down earlier, and he forgot to bring his.
Oh no. That's a classic.
So bring those down, and So you mentioned some of the players you got there in the original band. There's a couple of changes. So do you want to talk us through who's coming up on next Thursday?
Yeah, I think it was originally the official band, but a few people had to drop out for various reasons. So we have, Nickel will be there. So Nickel Thompson on trombone, Ian Thomas, Lawrence Cottle, and Chris Allard. So they're the original members.
Cool, yeah.
And then the two depths are Ryan Quigley on
fantastic,
trumpet, amazing, and some people might know him for his own stuff, and he and I, he's like my best mate, so we do loads of stuff together. And we've got a band called Triple, which is a Latin jazz outfit, so he's part of that.
We'll get that on the billing as well when we can.
Okay, nice one. Yeah.
Autumn next year, maybe.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. Yes, please. And then Thomas Bura, a great Polish piano player and keyboard player, who's going to be coming up to play with us, and he's based in London, but he's awesome. So he just got booked 2 nights ago.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to it since May last year. So
yeah. Oh, great. Yes. Sorry it's taken so long.
Yeah. No problem at all. No problem at all. These things happen, and it's we're delighted to have you come down or come up to our neck of the woods and play. Is it your first time playing in Worcester?
You know what? I think it's going to be my first time ever being in Worcester. Yeah. So yeah. I don't have recollection of being there before. So thank you.
This is grand. This is a claim I can stake with many musicians. First time we've ever lured them to Falgate Street Station and the wonders that are Worcester. Okay.
Yeah. I was just thinking, actually, I think the guy that mixed the album is Steve Winwood's guy, and he's coming up to the gig as well.
Ah, fantastic.
Go and do sound for us.
Brilliant.
I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah. Let's keep spreading the word.
Fantastic. Yeah. We've got a few more days out. Yeah. So we'll get people out. Thanks so much for joining us today, Paul. Been fantastic chatting with you. And really looking forward to seeing you on Thursday, the 30th of November down at the Mars Bar.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks so much.